Hi, I'm Madonna Guy, and you're here with the Natural Alternative. Welcome. I'm so glad to have Leanne James with us today. Leanne is a life coach, professional counsellor, holistic hypnotherapist, and so much more. Welcome, Leanne.
Thanks, Madonna.
We did it. So,
Yay.
yeah, what a couple of years you must have had in your clinic. So, tell us about the sort of people you've been seeing lately and what has been going on in their world.
Yeah, well, it's really wonderful to see an increase in the number of younger people that have been coming to see me. Um, the first one to come to see me was by referral, and such an amazing opportunity. She comes every week now, and not because she's not healing as such, but because she knows there's so much more, and she just continues to grow and get new skills. And she's referred on a few people as well.
So
And
rather than it being something that she's been dragged along kicking and screaming, she's actually finding some benefit, obviously.
absolutely, and have done testimonials and that sort of thing too. So definitely finding good value. I do a little review at the end of each little session and say, so what's the take home, and did you get some value out of it? Oh yes, definitely. And I'll get follow up texts just from spontaneously from that age group, which they are so keen. They're so keen to. They're aware and they want change and they want something different than what they've got. They
Yeah.
usually got anxieties and things to get over too and past traumas, but they don't understand even what that is.
And
And
with kids with resilience, like where are you finding their resilience sitting these days? Like how are they coping with new traumas? How are they coping with new stress and changes going on?
um, so far, 100% of them have got the medical profession giving them the opportunity for using their antidepressants
Yeah.
or recreational habits that come along.
Have you
So
seen that trio that they give? There's a trio of anti-anxiety, antipsychotic, and antidepressant.
uh,
You
But
know,
probably
it's
the side effects of all the same as well,
yeah,
ideation as well. No, I
yeah.
haven't seen them.
Yeah, it's sort of quite stressful whenever I see that. And it's been there's been three or four new people in the last 6 months who have had that same combination whacked on top of their, teenage
Well,
stress.
it's a thing that I'm a mum of five, but you don't counsel and coach your own kids because they know they don't want that. So, but I love who I can help and share with all of the knowledge and tips and my experiences as well. And sadly, sometimes we have to watch our own children actually go through some of the really tough
Yeah,
stuff, right?
absolutely.
And if only there's that someone extra, like I'm offering myself as that, substitute parent with all the extra training, the professionalism and the techniques for our own kids that we could, find them at the time that we really needed them. Now I've got two children that have gone through mental health issues, still have, and a son who, and I'm not going to divulge too much, but he's going through some damage issues right.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
he's been the super chill one. When he was at high school, the teachers sort of said he's never going to get a heart attack. He's never going to have issues because he only does just the right amount of what he needs to do. I
yeah.
had a little bit of giggle to myself there yesterday. They've got him on anti-anxiety tablets. And I said to him, why? And he goes, well, I get anxious when I can't breathe. I'm an asthmatic. And I said, you're only an asthmatic because I can't find another reason for it because you've been vaccinated. So
Yeah.
if you've got damage, they can't figure another thing. So they've given him puffers.
Yes.
Now they've given him anti-anxiety tablets.
Did you see the study? Because so many of these kids are getting chest pains, which of course can be heart and lung stuff together.
Yep.
So there was a study that came out on the 25th of July, published in Circulation Journal, which is the American Heart Association journal, and they found that the spikes in the jabs are destroying or messing with the innate immunity around the heart.
Mm.
Now, if you've got an inflamed heart, that's going to put pressure on your lungs as well. So I wonder how much of it is this pulmonary uh, hypertension, that's coming, that whole
Yeah.
cardiac lung system.
See, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, he was at the gym for 2.5 hours a day every day.
Mm.
A few weeks back, he couldn't even walk up the stairs without a
Yeah.
puffer. That is not normal.
No, it's
That
not.
is not my son, and that is not the personality of my son.
And it
Yeah.
makes me wonder whether the spike proteins are attacking, like the lungs probably have their own innate immune system. I haven't seen any study on it, but I wonder whether it's doing the same thing with the lungs.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, there's an amount of capacity to take charge of our own health and well-being, our mindset, our mind-body connection. But when other things and other people interfere with that, it does impact, especially when there's truths not being shared and there's mistruths. So now the mindset of many, including my son, is that, oh, this is the way it is. Now I've got to deal with, I've got anxiety. So now we have another loop,
Yes.
destroying the positive mindset that his usual chirpy go lucky kind of kid that he grew up with. It's destroying that because others have impacted him, and now there's this other belief coming in. So it's this environmental impact, environmental belief, all these beliefs that we've grown up with, and this is a new one that he's needs to I believe needs to look at, become aware of, and do some rewiring.
Yeah, it's funny. I said to my son yesterday, because I've got a 4-year-old grandson, and he's been sick this week, a few fevers and coughs and colds, and he was complaining about all of the illness going around at the moment. And I said, "Hun, you know what this is? It's his body building its immune system. This is what kids do. They get sick. They boost their antibodies. Their thymus gland gets active. This is a normal process of building a natural immunity."
Yeah, nature.
Yeah. I said, don't forget what you know, don't bullied into all the belief systems around you about kids being, not washing their hands 27 times a day. What 3 or 4-year-old should wash their hands 27 times a day?
Oh, go back to sucking on a hose in the backyard when you were right? Exactly. That's what we did.
Exactly.
I've got a strong immune system.
I have a very strong immune system.
Yep. I didn't succumb to a lot of that in the past. I was also raised by a wonderful mother who taught a lot of natural and alternative ideas and habits, and she still does her own smoothie juices at home every day, and has taught so many different aspects of natural health that I've brought into my adulthood. But I had this period of time where I was working in the food industry, which is completely the opposite. So yeah. I'd come home to mum and say, "Hey mum, do you know that they've got this additive in the biscuits or the ice cream or whatever, and it's this flavoring, but it's also a paint stripper."
Yes.
Right? So I would, do a bit of research, look it up, tell mum, and it'd just confirm what mum had been sort of sharing. And so there's a lot of what she taught me when I was growing up that's come through, but the next generation haven't got a clue.
I was going to say, are these teenagers aware of any of that, any of the long-term consequences of what's in our food, what's in our diets, what's in our air and water supply?
Not the ones in my family, except for what I try to share.
Yes.
The filtered and boiled water and that sort of thing is becoming a habitual thing. That's great. But the youth that I'm actually seeing come to me, some are aware and are very clean living and very spiritual, sort of aware about those things as well as what goes into the body, but not all of them. And I find the majority of people that I meet, that I have met outside of my friendship circles, aren't aware. They just sort of follow the rhetoric of what's going on out there. Yes. The friends and family are sort of closer, where they already know who I am, and so that's what the conversation would be.
Yes. And isn't it wonderful just to be able to talk about anything? There's no topics that you can't discuss. It's really lovely. And that's sort of where I love getting to that space with my clients as well. They think I'm, totally crazy initially. So I'll just go check out this government website, see what they say there. That's their website. Yeah. They're just laying it out.
Many years ago, I would teach girlfriends at like little play dates and things like that about relationships. So I've always been into helping and sharing new knowledge and the potential of human beings, individual beings, very much into, you are special, you are unique. What's the quality of your soul destiny? What's your divine, your divine right sort of thing. And so it sort of started many years ago. I was raised in church, but then sort of got into literature, and I remember teaching Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus to just girlfriends, and it continued on. But I realized that many of my friendships were not as deep thinking as what I was back then. So I was the odd one.
Yeah.
Right. And I became the odd one until, I guess, life and maturity and different experiences that they have had themselves, and then we can have different conversations now. But probably a pivotal point for me to come to a transition was about the mind body health, was about let me think, 19 years ago now. I found myself pregnant, and my gorgeous 18-year-old now knows this story, so it's not news. And I had no plans on being pregnant. This was not on my radar, and so I blamed God. I blamed everything, and he should know. And I was going down into somewhat of depression. Now, I ended up on antidepressants. I've had my experiences there. But what was happening was that I was getting all these different side effects from my stress.
Right.
Growing up, I was in the bathroom all the time. I was having heart palpitations. I was getting, like diabetic, low blood sugar, going all over the place. It was terrible. I was just so mixed up for months and months. I was pregnant, losing weight, and you're supposed to put on weight. And no one could work it out.
Right.
So
and it was stress.
Well, yeah, I one day sat down and went, well, what's controlling my pancreas? What's controlling my stomach? What's controlling all this? And it all came from in there. So I went, what? I'm sending mixed messages to my body. My brain is actually in fight or flight pretty much, and was trying to figure out what it really should be doing when I was so stressed. I wasn't really operating very well. So once I figured that I was making myself sick just by thinking stressful thoughts,
yes,
I changed my thoughts around that.
Absolutely. And I was at a seminar last weekend. I'm trying to find the guy's name. Howard Schubiner. Schubiner. Howard Schubiner. He's from Providence Park Hospital in the States, and he has been doing research on what health problems are created in the brain compared to having physical organic problems in the body. And he looked at everything from IBS, rheumatoid arthritis, migraines. There were so many things, and it was 99% of them were actually created in the brain. And he was talking about it from a survival perspective, which is exactly what you're chatting about. So at the moment, anything happens, your body decides, what do I need to do to survive?
Totally.
And two of the examples that he gave in relation to pain particularly, one was a guy in Canada. He was on a work site and a nail went through his hand sideways. And you could see this nail creeping in and out. And he had zero pain because he had to drive himself to the hospital. Drove to the hospital, got there as soon as they started working on him. That's when the pain kicked in.
Because the brain sent the chemicals in order
to... Absolutely. It said, well, I've got to get to the hospital. How am I going to survive this? Guy number 2, big hob boot, had a 6-inch nail go through the front of the boot. He had 100% of pain. Got him to the hospital, was taken there, was put on a drip as soon as he got in there. His pain was so bad. They had to cut the boot off him. The nail had gone between his toes. It had not even penetrated the body.
Oh, dear.
So his brain had created 100% of the pain.
Yeah.
In the same, it's a different survival mechanism.
Totally. Yeah.
But the brain is incredibly powerful.
And and another major pivotal point on that same thing, my experience, another major pivotal point for me in understanding the power of the mind was I was in a really toxic relationship some years ago, and I, sleep deprived and very psychopathic, narcissistic, 24/7. I was living in a sandwich of, compliments and rage, and And I didn't know.
The sandwich relationship.
Yeah. I didn't want to say that, but that's it. That's totally it. And I started reading Napoleon Hill's book, The Science of Getting Rich. Is that the one? No, that's
one from like the 1920s.
Yeah. But it was Napoleon
the best
Hill.
friend one.
I read so many of these brilliant books and the ones that are like 100 years old, they're just phenomenal and they're science-based, and I absorb myself in that. And that's where I get my greatest learnings and personal growth from. But I was reading this one book, this Napoleon Hill book, and there was something in there that said very similar to what you were saying, that the mind actually creates the environment for the body, in responding to pain, etc. And I went, oh, do you mean, and I was questioning myself and my higher self, and do you mean that I'm actually creating my circumstances and, what's going on within me in the PTSD and the anxiety and all the rest of it because I was in a really bad relationship? I went, you what? My brain's trying to do the right thing by me. Oh, so I started to have a relationship with my mind.
Yes.
Right.
Think and grow rich.
Think and grow rich. That's it. Yeah. I knew rich was on the end of it. And so moving forward through all of my practices and the energy work in particular, where, I could get to, be up close to people and actually have those conversations, but even feel the heat where, on their body, perhaps. It's so fascinating to localize where their pains are that they've identified, and then start talking about that from an emotional or a previous experience, from the basis of a previous experience. So
yes,
okay, well, you've got pains in your tummy. Oh, when did you first notice that you become, IBS? Well, I was about 12. What happened when you're about 12? And then we just have this little conversation, and things will come up that they hadn't considered before. It happens with the youth as well. They're only in their teens, and they've still got experiences that they can relate to, that their mind has shut down until we have a gentle conversation.
Yes.
And then it's because we can do that so safely, that, and it's such a key word, it's got to be safe, that then they feel able to share what was an experience that somebody else has probably poo-hooed, or a different perspective or belief around. And then it can come through and we can go, okay, well, let's talk about that then. And this is where some great healings can happen, because we can cognitively, but also subconsciously, we can do some inner work with the youth. And they've got like 50, 60, 70 years to go, and they're the leaders of our country. They're the leaders of our communities and our organizations in the future. So, they don't want to flounder. They really don't.
We need their brains working.
We need them, and they're intelligent. They can think deep thoughts. So helping them to understand so they can have more empowerment, being an empowerment results coach and counselor, I sort of, do the both, but also tap into the emotions and the energies of what's going on as well. And I can actually, I guess it's intuitive, but I can actually tap into what they're thinking and feeling. And sometimes they'll look at me and go, "Whoa, how did you know that?" Well, I've had similar experiences, and so it's really good that it can be neutralized in a way that they're not weird and strange, and they're the only ones on the planet that are like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I had a client years and years ago. He was a young man, about 12 years old, and all his mum wanted him to do was do better in maths. And so it was funny because I got him to do affirmations. So he had to write down his affirmations and goals before he turned up, and it'd often be scribbled on a bit of paper on the way in, no thought. Except one of the things was that he wanted to earn $1 million a year as a professional soccer player by the time he was like 21 years old or something like that. Anyway, because I said to his mum, look, it doesn't matter what we use as his goals, because in order to do anything that he wants, we need to have an integrated brain. In order to be able to do maths, you need an integrated brain. So he would turn up. And when I saw that one, I said, okay, well, let's work on that. So I'd tap it in, do some kinesiology. And it was funny because his mum rang me up one day and she said, Madonna, you've done me a disservice. She said, we have to go to Europe this summer because he's won a place in a soccer retreat for 15 to 17-year-olds. So they had to go to Europe for the summer. which was pretty funny.
That's it.
Because she actually said to me, he's no good at soccer, but let him think he's going to get better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. Isn't it
Yeah.
interesting? And so there's something that like motivation, that whole concept of motivation is a very emotionalized experience within. But it can't, it's not something that you can push into somebody. You can't push motivation into somebody.
Yeah.
And, you're just talking about soccer, and it reminds me of those parents that might be on the sideline, telling their kids they've got to do better at their sports days, that sort of thing. And well and good if both are involved, right? But you can't motivate from the outside. You can't rage at somebody to change their habits. You can't, scream at an employee and expect that you're going to get a good positive result out of them. So motivation actually has to come from somewhere within. And having a real passion and desire for something is that emotion that helps manifestation, helps things to actually occur in our life. It's not just a thinking thing. We're holistic beings. We've got a mind where we've got cognitive thinking. We've got a subconscious mind, which is the operation system of, the whole 95% of the rest of us, which, controls the chemical releases and the hormones, etc., and makes, the arm go up and me go, it's a bit warm in here or whatever, right? But we also have the energy systems in the body, and all of this. I'm just sort of adding.
That's great.
Yeah, that the youth aren't totally aware of how they're behaving, what's going on for them. And look, it's not just young youth, it's actually mature youth as well that I do. So I started off with mature ladies, and like soulpreneurs, ladies who really want to, get their little business going. So it's the same sort of thing. Find out what your passion is, what's your big why, emotionalize that, get some visioning going. And so there's all these different little tools that we can do to help somebody recognize their potential, see that their greater gifts are, make some plans around whatever that is, not from me, from them, and, really activate their behaviors in life, their doing world into making those things happen.
How many people come to you who know what they want to do? Because I reckon the main thing I get people crying on the table doing kinesi is when I say to anyone, I said, well, what do you want to do? Like, what would fill your cup? What would bring you joy? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? Yeah. And that's when the tears come, because they regularly say, no one's ever asked me that before. I've never thought about it.
Yeah, I think the apart from the soulpreneurs who want to know that, they've got that.
They're there.
Happening.
Yes.
Yep. And they will come with that as the goal, but then we have to up level all of the other, we have to get into the layers underneath that's been stopping them all the way through. And so, they're not without.
So I'm not worthy, I don't deserve it.
I'm not enough. I'm not enough.
All of the money shenanigans. Yeah.
So I would have to say that the majority come because there's something wrong. They don't know what, they want to be helped.
Yes.
They don't think they're broken. They need, it's not that bad, but they know that innately they know that they're worth something.
Yeah.
Just don't know what that is, and they're not getting support. So they're not having those conversations that can help them become empowered and feel like they're achieving something. One of my young clients, he came to the end of his block with me and was out of work, so wasn't quite sure what he was going to do for the next bit, right? And if he could afford it. And I said, right, so we're going to believe that getting that job is exactly what you need. He didn't have a job in mind at the time. And I said, well, we'll put a date in the calendar and I'll send you the invoice anyway. And he says, oh yeah, I get it. We're going to believe that it's going to happen, and then it'll happen. And 2 days later, he messaged me and he says, oh, I got that job. It was a different job, but it was a job. And he got that job. He goes, I like this manifestation stuff. It's good.
That's so excellent.
I love that. Like I just, get these little messages from people to say that the conversation that we'd had has actually changed their lives. And how many times I can reflect back on just a conversation that I've had with someone.
Yes.
Someone that said to me, stop it. Or someone that, influenced me with the name of a book. Or had I thought of something in a different way. And I can still say that that was a pivotal moment in my life. And I'm so grateful for those people, and it's paying it forward. It's wanting to see, that sort of, that same energizing of others to improve our world and keep humanity true.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's one of the things that people are losing these days, with the government being in so much control and the mainstream media creating so much division and controversy and anger and frustration, so that people aren't communicating. People aren't communicating. Like it used to be, don't discuss science and, politics and religion or something, but now it's like you can barely talk about anything without getting people riled up.
The key thing about that is the separation thing, like, because isolation, causes a physical separation from people, and social media and everyone texting and flicking, and you got 2.6 seconds to stop the scroll and this sort of thing. It's stopping people from connecting. So we're not connecting to each other in an authentic, congruent way. We don't even know what that is, because we've never been taught what to do for ourselves. School system doesn't teach that. So, and
isolation has the same damage to our health that smoking does.
I'm not surprised.
It is actually physically the same damaging effect.
Yeah. So this idea of separation, whether it's separation from our family, our friends, our community, our church, our school, there's all these different levels of separation that have become the norm, which I say that in inverted commas because I don't agree with it at all. It's so anti-human. It's so inhumane.
Yes.
It's not for the betterment of humanity. And it, because we don't have those abilities then to have, decent connection with ourselves or how to do that.
Yeah.
We can fall by the wayside because we don't have the tools.
Exactly. And the last couple of years, these kids in schools, and I know it's been different all over the world, but I'm so sure you've seen the same stuff as me. People in little plastic boxes in some places in the world, the masks for 8 hours a day.
It's insanity.
It's insanity. People have. I heard the other day that the immune system is now a conspiracy theory.
Oh, Lordy.
Which I thought, it's so true, isn't it? It's like everyone's forgotten. Like my son last night, he grew up with me. He's forgotten what it is to have an immune system. What does it mean when you get a fever? It's what your body does to build antibodies. It always has been.
Yep. And so, this is this thing, and then it impacts mental health.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And so the mental health industry is only relying on medications, pharmaceuticals, big pharma medications, etc. I got 100% of my youth clients at this point who I've qualified. I'm not a physician. I'm not a GP. I'm not a physician either. I will not recommend that you go off any of your medication, but I will give you tips and tools along the way, and you can make that decision for yourself. And
because you are a sovereign human being.
Exactly. And because I've got some sensible tools that once upon a time you go to a health practitioner, in an office somewhere, and they would, maybe be able to tell you all these natural things. That's how I grew up, that natural things in order to help you get over, problems that you've got, with an infected leg, or if it's a funny tummy or something like that, there'd be have a swig of lemon juice or just something natural. It wasn't a drug.
Yes.
So this mental health world is just going ballistic, and I've done training in that kind of world as well, understanding more about emotions and how to manage. One of my kids has got a borderline personality disorder, so I've done training around that. Remarkable changes in relationships and communication, which seems so basic, when we understand the way the mind is working.
Yes.
So as we as big people can understand more about the way the mind works, we can have better conversations with our families regarding their emotions, their feelings, and not even conversations. Sometimes it's about just listening and being aware. But the hard work can be because us big people actually need to make changes first.
Yeah, absolutely. No one's perfect.
No.
What a concept.
Yeah, I know, right?
We're here for a human experience.
Yeah. Totally. So that's one of the things that I had done last year is I took a workshop out to the world and called The Beauty of Emotions. And it actually included, elements of communication skills, different levels of emotions, where the emotions are trapped in the body, what the emotions trapped in the body means in the past, like where that actually began. We do some emotion mapping and, really talk about the different reasons for communication being around. And, like these are really simple things that we probably don't even get a chance to learn about. Why do we have emotions? Well, that's a simple thing, really, isn't it? Why do we have emotions? Well, emotions could be angry, emotions could be joy, emotions, there's a whole range of emotions, but what's going on before that? Is it to protect us? Is it to, is it to get more of something? Is the emotion of envy for some reason? Oh, we really like that over there, I want more of that. That's motivating emotion.
Yes.
And emotions are, active, so an energy in motion. So
there's a part of the brain, I do LEAP, a brain integration process with kinesiology, and there's a part of the brain, the anterior, actually a couple, orbitofrontal cortex, anterior singular gyrus, and subcolossal gyrus. And these three little areas of the brain, which are in the midbrain, they are linked in with up to 7 generations of how we cope with stress and trauma. So one of them, and I think it's the orbitofrontal cortex, it's to do with us being in a hierarchy survivally, so that we pick on ourselves when we're not perfect under stress. And the reason being that 10,000 years ago, if there were 20 people in your little social tribe and 2 or 3 of them weren't your brother or sister, and that was going to be who you ended up with and had your family with, if you weren't good at picking the berries and making a wrap to wear and, making the dinner, you weren't going to get, dude number 1, 2 or 3 who were your only options, So it was sort of like, it's sort of, that part of the brain is very much about exactly like you said. It's motivating because you want to be better under stress, so you're the best version of yourself. And even from that perspective, a lot of people feel guilty when they are when they're picking on other people or feeling judgmental. And I say, no, judgment is still a survival mechanism. Because the only way that you judge someone, and maybe that's the wrong word, and that probably does trigger a lot of people, but when you judge someone, you're comparing them to you and thinking, well, I wouldn't do that. And is there anything wrong with looking at something and thinking, well, I wouldn't do that? Like, really, at its core, is there anything wrong with that?
No, the judgment.
Because it's an awareness.
Yeah.
And it's more an awareness for me.
It's a belief system as well.
Ah, very good.
Judgment is a belief system, and it's it can be a control mechanism. So when I understood that judgment itself was not judgment as in worthiness, you judge a person because they're good or bad, that I was making a call on my perception of the usefulness of something. Like I was making a judgment, that kind of explanation or meaning behind it. The meaning is another thing. We can't communicate properly unless we've got the same meaning. And that's the whole idea, is having a common unity in our conversation. Is like, I am sharing a meaning to you. Do you get that meaning? Because if you don't get that meaning, I need to communicate a little bit more. But if you do get that meaning, then we can move on to the next sentence, sort of thing.
Yes.
Right. So communication is, that common unity of meaning.
That's beautiful.
We totally miss this in our world today. So where was I? Judgment.
So you've got, I'm just wondering, with your kids who have just been through school and stuff, like, have you seen that they are being taught how to think, or are you seeing that they're being taught what to think?
I believe that they're being taught what to think. But given that probably when they reached grade 9, each of them, they were well beyond needing my help for homework because their work was much different. But I did notice one of the younger ones, when they were going through high school, there was getting to the right answer in a mathematical sum, but because they didn't answer it in the right way and go through these processes, they got the answer wrong.
Right.
Like they went this way to get to XYZ, and the teacher wanted them to get, or the criteria was to get it, do this direction to get to XYZ.
The teacher had a linear answer.
They got it wrong.
Yeah, right.
And I'm sorry, some kids don't think in a certain, it's the same. We think differently. We do.
Because of our different experiences, our different life, because everything makes us think differently.
Some people
Absolutely.
think big picture first. Other people think, small, small individual refined details, and they want to know all of that. And some people are quite happy with just big picture stuff. Some think emotionally initially. I do. I think kinesthetically and emotionally. If I'm safe, do I feel right? I do. So when it comes to imagination, I need to be aware of this with all people that I see, because there's got to be an opportunity for them to learn at their level as well.
Yes.
So, for example, going to a store to buy something. I did this when I was doing NLP. You go to a store to buy something, and the shop attendant, this is a hypothetical, goes, this is a very well priced, very refined cut suit, and it will, this is the price, and they give all these details of what you're seeing, right? And we did this experiment in the class, and how did that land? Well, that didn't land for me. But if I was to go into a shop and they go, oh, try this on, it just feels so really comfy. The material is really soft, and it just falls nicely on you. I can see that it's falling nicely around your shape, right? For example. So, visioning something and seeing a future,
Yes.
seeing a future of being, a soccer player, as opposed to somebody feeling the enthusiasm of getting a trophy, and like the accolades and the applaud. They're different.
Yes.
So we need to see that this is what everybody's like. We just have to tap into what their experiences are and the way they communicate inside their mind as well, and how that translates into the body, so that we can be anxiety and depression free.
Yes, and you can imagine it, and it's a lot of the time the people will tell you how they think by the words they're saying when you first see them.
Oh,
So
yeah, I can get out.
Yes.
I love it. I go, oh, well, hang on a minute. Can I just tap into that word that you just said then? And they go, oh, yeah, I did say that, didn't I? And so it really does show what their subconscious is really wanting to express, or knows and believes, but it's usually the first thing that is said that is the truth.
Yes. And it's funny because occasionally you have to dig a little deeper and get to their truth. And I had an example this morning. I had someone come in, and I've seen them maybe 3 or 4 times. And I had a big list of like 10 things they wanted sorted out when they first came to see me. And I said, oh, so how's this? Oh, yeah, that's gone. Oh, yeah, how's this? Oh, yeah, that's okay. How's this? And I said, well, initially all of these were going on. You've said you haven't had any changes. So what hasn't had any changes yet? And they said, well, I haven't lost any weight. And I went, well, that was like number 6 when you came in.
Yeah.
And, it's sort of interesting, because I don't think even people realize they might come in and their pain might be the biggest priority, initially. But when the pain disappears, they go, well, what about the weight? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that too. And, as a professional, I still have my own mentors and my own coaches and my own, counselors when I need them. And in being able to, fully express in an open, safe place, that's when I can initially say, well, I'm coming up with my presenting issues, and this is what's going on. And then in discussion, I'll go, oh, I can feel, and I'll say it now, I can feel the pain. There's tears coming. I can feel the emotion rising. Okay, let that happen, because this is my body talking. Yeah. The body's wants to say something. It's got a voice in there. My goodness me. And if we don't listen to the voice of our body, we're going to end up with diseases and irritable gut, and twisted stomachs and irritable gut, whatever it is, or whether it's an ulcer, or we go for a chocolate milk all the time because we think that's going to make us happy. Then we get a sugar fixation and habits out of that. And like these things are emotional as much as they are physical.
Yes.
They become physical because of the emotion and the mindset. So very much holistic, and wanting to get to the root cause of whatever happens with a client.
I assume you work with addictions as well.
I haven't actually worked directly with addictions, only those who want to get off something, but you wouldn't call it addictions. Oh, I actually did have an AA girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did actually. But I wasn't working with her to help her get off it. I was in that recovery period afterwards.
Yes.
So it was more about she'd been lost in the bottle for so many years that
Mm.
she didn't know what was next and who she was. So this was helping her to find new tools, clean tools,
Yeah.
manage.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? When someone has an addiction, obviously they're trying to hide something, suppress something,
Yeah.
they're creating a different world for themselves in that addiction.
And the important thing is to find out who they are before that. It's
Yeah.
not about diving straight into the habit and going, you're going to kick the habit, you're going to lose the weight, you're going to stop the smoking, you're going to do all this. That's all negative stuff. They know they've got that. We don't
Yes.
talk, we can't talk negative, but getting to know the human and what their divine potential is, or their quality
Yeah.
core, not cause. Um, that's where their motivations can be. What do they like doing when they were growing up? What was their passions? What are their favorite things? And start to replace the bad habits with the good habits.
Yeah. It's like
While
that Susan Jeffers. I assume you read Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, 30 years ago. Yeah.
on my bookshelf, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I often say to people about, and I'm thinking about addiction being one part of your life. It's only one part of your life. Remember, there's that picture of like 9 squares, and you need 9 sections of your life so that if anything disappears, you've still got lots of other sections. So your marriage shouldn't be your whole life. Your children shouldn't be your whole life. Your work shouldn't be your whole life. Exercise shouldn't be your whole life.
That's right.
So so I suppose that's what you're doing with these people, is adding energy to the positives in their life.
Yeah, and so I'll tap into 2 things. One's Tony Robbins, and another one is that addictions are a form of connection.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, so the first one about Tony Robbins, he has 6 human needs, and love and connection is one of them. Variety is another one. And I think his philosophy is that if a habit or a behavior ticks the box of 4 of those 6, then it can be an addiction.
Right.
So if your alcohol bottle gives you the variety, gives you the friendship, then it can become an addiction. And it's a really interesting point when trying to step back from something that covers that many human needs all in one go. So I'm a firm believer, and I don't know where I even got this idea from. I might have created it myself, but addictions are a form of connection. It's started where there was a need for something, and that was the best opportunity at the time.
I love that. That takes the shame, guilt, blame away from it.
Totally.
And it also takes away this whole disease notion, which sort of
I'm so over that one.
Yeah, like everything being a disease gives people an excuse not to, and or my father was an alcoholic. Yeah, my dad was an alcoholic. He was 44 when he died, and he was absolutely, he guzzled himself and smoked himself to death without a doubt. He was an old man in a young man's body. He was not a 44-year-old.
Yep.
And, so being able to blame it on genes, what an easy way out. Being able to blame it on it being a disease, what an easy way out.
This is the way I am. I was born this way.
Yeah.
No, thoughts are just thoughts, and they can be changed. So let's see what we can change those thoughts to. And once we do change the thoughts, we can feel better about it ourselves. We can, we're not enough. We're not good enough. We're not all these other things anymore, because we actually can destroy those belief systems by seeing an opposite to that. They're not absolute black and white.
Can I share a little story?
Absolutely.
So about 5, 6, 7 years ago, I had it was a universal consciousness sort of hypnotherapy session with a friend of mine, Robert Coombs. And we were going, and amazingly, the session was like 3.5 hours. And I swear I would have thought maybe an hour and a half. It was like, it was a lot. But at one point, when we'd gone back to when I was 4 years old, it felt like there was an elephant on my chest, and it just would not go away. It was like stuck there. And we're talking about what was going on at 4 years old. I was 4 when I went to grade 1. My good friend Bonnie and I were the only 2 kids in the class who had alcoholic parents. We were the 2 who became best friends. How do 4-year-olds connect to another kid who's got an alcoholic parent. How does that happen?
Yeah.
So during the session, it's sort of, because Dad wasn't abusive. Dad was, he was Irish. He was sort of drunk. He was sort of, always telling funny jokes. And I didn't think of being a kid of an alcoholic parent. I didn't think of that as being abuse at all.
Yeah.
And that was sort of what came through in this section was that even though he was not abusive, it's still a trauma for a 4-year-old to have an alcoholic father.
Yep.
And it was that trauma that was sitting in there for all those years that was awoken during that session.
Yeah, this is the thing, is getting to know our little child inside that's been hurt or injured or just was doing the very best she could do at the time because she didn't know any different.
Yeah.
And like forgiving the process of how we may have abused ourselves afterwards.
Yeah.
Or still having that. Well, what was wrong with me? Why didn't Daddy notice me? Why didn't I get cuddles? Is there something wrong? What should I do more about? Could I be a people pleaser? What can I do more so I can get some attention?
Yes.
All these different things can set in, but if we can just see that little child was just using 4-year-old, techniques or tools at their
disposal. Then who do we attract in our world? Because exactly like you say, the addiction is one thing we might attract, but who are the humans that we attract into our world when we've been damaged?
Yeah. Oh, well, what do I have to do in order to, to be loved? I got to do more things. I've got to people please, basically. And so I'll put up with whatever behaviors I get at me so that I at least have company and connection. So I have a connection, this is kind of part of my experience, but sort of exaggerated somewhat. I don't want to give everything away. Becoming a people pleaser to a point and not getting out of a bad relationship when it was really bad.
Yeah.
Because I set up habits way long ago. I can forgive myself for that because I didn't know any different.
And doesn't Tony Robbins say you need to hit a certain level of pain before your body will even try something new?
Yeah. Because
it's the pain that's important for your brain. So if you're going into a traumatic household every evening, and you never know what scale it's going to be, but it's somewhere there. You get your survival mechanisms up and running, your fight, flight, freeze. You're ready to work out how your mood's going to be for the rest of the night, depending on what's going on.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And you know what? I still have PTSD things happen to me when there's opportunity, when there's circumstances out there where I might be confronted.
Wow. Okay.
Because it happened in the work environment too, even though I was, stepping up, getting stronger, getting more empowered, getting more assertive. I could still see those little triggers coming up. So, my greatest tip in that is to repeat, thank you, brain, for doing me justice. Thank you for sharing with me that, that you still operate perfectly by sending adrenaline to my body, just in case there's a problem that I need to be out of, getting out of the way. But right now I am actually safe. I am safe and I'm calm and nothing is going to hurt me. I'm safe and I'm calm. Nothing's going to hurt me. Thank you, brain. Thank you, body. You're all working in perfect divine order. Beautiful. And intentionally, that actually reduces the panic. One of my clients came last week or a couple of weeks ago, and she did actually experience having a panic attack. So I actually took her through ways to help her. She said no one's ever done that for her before. No one's ever done it, and it was very simple. But people don't know how to manage anxiety or panic or depression.
I was just thinking about a client years and years ago. By the time she came to see me, she had been to someone who worked with her through several past lives. And what the past life practitioner missed, I believe this was sort of malpractice from people in our industry, she missed the follow-up. What do you do if you feel da-da-da-da-da? So the 4 past lives that she'd gone through in 2 sessions were all horrific. They were all horrific. They all ended with a horrific death. There was huge amounts of abuse and trauma in all 4 of them. So she was having panic attacks like every 15 minutes and had done for like weeks before she came and saw me. It was just constant. And I thought I knew this practitioner at the time, and I said, well, she does flower essences. Did she give you any flower essences to take? Maybe you need to be doing something like rescue remedy. No, she didn't do that. And I know she's a bit of a kinesiologist. So I said, well, did she ask you to hold the emotional stress release points?
Yeah.
And she said, no. And I thought, okay. Did she ask you to run your central meridian, to increase the conscious brain? No. I said, well, what did she tell you to do? Because I was thinking, you can't take someone through, in my brain, you can't take someone through 4 horrific visualizations and not give them a positive to go out with. Like, what's the point of that? Anyway, very frustrating. Nothing whatsoever. Nothing. I was horrified. And I said, well, let's...
and you know what? This is really sad, and I'm going to make a statement on behalf of other coaches and counsellors out there too. Not all coaches and counsellors are qualified.
Yes.
And not all coaches and counsellors are worth their salt. They might have got an online course. Not saying there's anything wrong with their capacity to express that, but just because someone is a coach or a counsellor doesn't mean that they've got the necessary rapport or skills in order to really help somebody else. So that's why I always have an introductory session with any of my clients in order to, build that rapport. And I usually introduce something like, this is just so that we can see if we like each other.
Yeah. Oh, because let's face it, everyone isn't a match, and that's fine.
No, and that's totally fine, refer on. And
because it can even be a tone of voice that we're totally unaware of. So I had a lady years and years ago, and I didn't put it together till about 5 years later. So it was about 5 years later that I heard a voice from my past. And then I went, oh, that's why Lynn irritated me. I had no idea. But I could barely, and I don't dislike chatting to people, but for some reason, this woman really irritated me and had been one of my teachers from my childhood who had been quite not great for me.
Isn't that funny?
Mm.
It's beautiful when we come to the realization or recognition of that in hindsight. But in the meantime, I think the advice would be to be open to these things that feel uncomfortable, to become comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, so we can step outside that comfort zone just a little bit, because no success or transition happens inside the comfort zone.
No, feel the fear and do it anyway.
We have to step outside at some point and do even just a little toe dipping in the water, something.
Absolutely.
So if you feel that way, then by all means, seek help and ask the questions and then wait for, the results to come through and the answers to unfold.
Yeah. So when you're working with someone who is going through the trauma of have you seen trauma from the last 3 years where, sorry, I had a thought in my head. I was down in Sydney recently, and one of my cousins' best friend, her son, 22 years old, has not been able to leave his bedroom in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
He will not go to the toilet. He wears an adult nappy.
Oh, wow.
So that is how much the trauma of being afraid of bugs, being afraid of germs, being afraid. That's what that's done to a young man.
Yeah.
I sort of wonder how we're going to move forward with kids like that, because the whole germophobia on the planet at the moment seems totally out of control. People have forgotten they have an immune system. People have forgotten. How many
biomes are the microbiomes in whatever, and on our skin it's there, and it has to be everywhere. It's where we can't even see it. Yeah.
Actually, there was an Israeli doctor again at the conference last weekend. He was cool. He took the vegans and vegetarians are going to hate this. Sorry about that. But they took these little mice, small intestines outside the body. They put little electrodes on the end so they were still alive. They were connected to this big thing. And then they would put different microbes and infections and different nutrients and toxins through the intestines, and then they would do like little biopsies of the intestines, and they were seeing what it did to the microbiome, to the immune system within the gut, or the nervous system within the gut. And once again, it was the nervous system layer, not the immune system or the microbiome, that was affected more than the others in nearly every case. So that gut-brain connection again, again was more important.
Totally.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. Not surprising, the M-brain theory or the three brain theory. Yeah, totally. I love all of that stuff. Everything interlaces, everything connects to the fact that we're divinely created and magnificently divine, and we've got so much potential uninterfered with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would your 3 big tips for people today be?
Communicate with yourself, learn to connect with yourself, understand that you are divine, and if something feels uncomfortable, talk about it, seek help, get some direction on that, get some support. That's about the inner self. There's I have an IOU blueprint with which I take, when I present with people, and the I stands for the inside. Understand the inside of you first. The inside being your character traits, your things that you like and you dislike, things that are just solely about you, your spirit, your soul, what your destiny is going to be, what your pains have been, whatever it is, it's the inside of you. And the next one is, it doesn't involve anybody else, by the way.
Yeah.
The next one is the outside. So O is for outside. The things, how you communicate with others, what your career path is like, what you're eating, what your habits are. Your beliefs, because that's what's coming at you. So it's all the outside impacted, either towards or from towards the outside. And the other one is your unlimited you. So there's the IOU, and if anybody can take something from today, is that every day I would recommend you stand in front of a mirror and you say, I owe you the best day that we can possibly have. But you're talking to yourself, like, I love you, I owe you the best day today.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. And that's easy to remember.
Correct. You can even do it with a mirror like this.
Yes.
Like a little mirror.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Leanne. That's been fabulous having a chat with you today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
How would you like people to contact you? Do you have any courses coming up soon? Do you have space in your busy clinic?
I definitely have space. Love the youth, love the older ladies, or the middle-aged ladies, or whatever age you are, the youth, the younger and the older. I have done workshops. I'm looking for opportunities for more and would love to joint venture. I have a big idea of doing youth groups and take that into a bit like, sharing circles and all this sort of stuff that I can teach them, all these different motivation skills and productivity skills and how they're normal and they're beautiful humans, and how to support that in the next, for the next generation rising. Definitely reach out. My business is Lotus Energies. So I can be contacted via the website or Facebook or Instagram. Direct email is contact@lotus-energies.com. I've also got another website up at the moment as well, which is sort of heart space growing, and it's spirit-ed.com. So it's spirit-ed.com. And that has been sort of the premise of where the future will be. It's spiritual education in a spirited way.
Beautiful.
So I advise everyone to rise up and live their spirited life.
Absolutely.
We have it in us.
We can be the best we can be.
Absolutely. Totally.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks, Madonna.
Thank you for another gorgeous human experience.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.